Beloved soul, pause for just a moment. Take a slow, gentle breath and allow yourself to become still, because what has been placed before your eyes today did not arrive here by accident. Heaven has directed your path to this message at exactly the right moment in your journey. Something is changing around you even now. It may appear quiet on the outside, almost impossible to detect with your natural eyes, yet the angels are making it known that what is taking place beneath the surface of your circumstances carries far greater significance than anything you can presently understand with your own perspective. If you want to discover the complete truth about what happens when you stop chasing someone, take a moment to like this message right now. You did not argue. You did not plead. You did not send one last message trying to defend yourself or explain your heart. You simply stopped. You stopped pursuing someone who had become completely accustomed to receiving your love, your attention, and your energy without offering the same devotion in return. And beloved, in that one quiet, brave decision, something timeless and deeply sacred began moving in ways you may not yet fully recognize. The person who once believed your presence would always remain is now standing in a silence they never expected to experience. The warmth you shared so generously, the attention you offered so faithfully every day, and the emotional openness you gave without hesitation have all been withdrawn. They do not feel this change through conflict, arguments, or dramatic words. They feel it through your absence. Beloved, absence carries a spiritual and emotional weight that no conversation could ever create. Right now, whether you realize it or not, they are thinking more deeply than they have before. They are questioning themselves and experiencing emotions they never imagined because, for the first time, they are encountering life without your constant effort holding the relationship together. That changes everything. When you stop chasing someone, the transformation is rarely loud or dramatic, yet it is incredibly powerful on both a spiritual and psychological level. Before this moment, the connection survived largely because of your effort, your messages, your emotional availability, and your willingness to keep showing up. Your energy flowed toward them day after day, creating a one-sided momentum that kept the relationship moving forward. That momentum allowed them to remain comfortable without ever having to examine the true condition of their own heart. They never had to decide what they genuinely wanted. They never had to honestly evaluate their own emotions or face what they truly desired from the relationship because your continual effort filled every empty space before they even noticed it existed. God created the human heart with the desire to seek, pursue, and make sincere choices. But when one person carries the responsibility of seeking and pursuing for both people, the other is deprived of the very process that develops authentic commitment. They remained inside the relationship without matching your investment. A relationship sustained by only one person's effort is not a covenant. It becomes convenience. Comment the word "stopped" if you have finally stopped chasing and have already begun to notice the difference. The moment you chose to stop, the entire foundation of that unhealthy pattern began to shift. Not because you caused conflict or forced a confrontation, but because you removed the very energy that had been supporting an imbalance that was never designed to last. What once seemed stable to them suddenly feels unfamiliar, and the human heart, exactly as God designed it, struggles with uncertainty whenever something truly valuable appears to be slipping away. Proverbs 4:23 reminds us to guard our hearts above everything else, because everything we do flows from within. Beloved, the moment you stopped chasing, you began protecting your heart. And as you chose to guard it, heaven began doing what only heaven can accomplish. It began revealing truth. Before your silence, their attention remained passive. They accepted your love and your effort without ever feeling a genuine need to return it, fully believing your consistency would always close the distance between you. Your reliability had become their place of comfort, something they never questioned because it always seemed guaranteed. But now your absence has awakened their attention. For the first time, they are noticing the empty space your presence once filled. This is not random, beloved. It is part of God's divine timing. The human mind quickly becomes accustomed to whatever is constantly available, yet the very moment that constant presence disappears, the heart is awakened. Your silence interrupted everything they expected. Now quiet questions are beginning to rise inside them. They are replaying old conversations in their mind. They are wondering whether something has truly changed. God is using the interruption of their certainty to awaken a heart that had grown comfortable through complacency. 1 Corinthians 14:33 reminds us that God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. The confusion they are now experiencing was never created by God. It was born from the imbalance they willingly allowed to continue for far too long. The reason everything feels different now is because you have finally stopped carrying a burden that never truly belonged to you. For so long, you invested your time, your emotions, your prayers, and your energy into keeping this connection alive. You believed that if you loved harder, reached out more often, or remained endlessly available, things would eventually change. But now your quietness has exposed something that could never be seen while you were doing all the work. The balance has shifted, and for the first time the responsibility no longer rests on your shoulders. If this relationship is to continue, they must now decide whether they are willing to step forward. When you constantly gave your attention, it reassured them without requiring any effort in return. Your presence became something they expected instead of something they valued. Now that your attention is no longer there, they are left facing the reality of what your presence truly meant. They cannot rely on your consistency to avoid confronting their own choices. What once felt comfortable has become uncomfortable because silence has a way of revealing truths that constant conversation often hides. Scripture reminds us that the Lord directs the steps of those who trust Him. Perhaps this season of stillness is not an accident at all. Perhaps God is using your decision to stop pursuing what would not pursue you as a way of uncovering what has remained hidden. Sometimes heaven reveals truth not through dramatic events, but through quiet moments that allow everything to become unmistakably clear. As long as you carried the relationship, the imbalance remained covered by your effort. Every message you sent, every conversation you started, every sacrifice you made disguised how uneven things had become. But now that you have stepped back, the truth stands in full view. They are forced to recognize how much depended on your willingness to keep showing up. Whether they acknowledge it immediately or not, the absence of your effort creates a reality they cannot easily ignore. Silence also creates room for honest reflection. Without the constant distraction of your attention, they are left alone with their own thoughts. Feelings that were once pushed aside begin to surface. Questions they avoided become harder to escape. They must decide whether this connection truly matters or whether they were simply comfortable receiving what you freely gave. No one else can make that decision for them. At the same time, this season places the responsibility entirely in their hands. They now have every opportunity to demonstrate their intentions through consistent action instead of comfortable words. Someone who sincerely values your place in their life will not remain passive forever. Genuine care eventually moves toward reconciliation, communication, and accountability. A person who refuses to take even a single step reveals more through their silence than they ever could through promises. Not everyone responds to distance in the same way, and that response often reveals the condition of the heart. A mature person will not immediately react with anger, pride, or blame. Instead, they will take time to examine themselves honestly. They will consider where they fell short and whether their actions reflected the love they claim to have. They understand that growth often begins with humility. Someone who has not reached that level of maturity may choose a very different path. Rather than facing uncomfortable truths, they may distance themselves even more. pride often convinces people that avoiding responsibility is easier than accepting it. They may pretend the relationship never carried real significance or convince themselves that your absence changes nothing. Deep inside, however, avoidance never produces peace. It simply postpones the moment when truth must finally be faced. Their response provides valuable insight for you as well. Instead of wondering endlessly what they think or how they feel, watch what they choose to do. Consistent actions reveal what words alone cannot. Heaven often answers our questions through people's behavior rather than through explanations. If someone truly treasures what God has placed before them, their choices will eventually reflect that reality. Another truth becomes clear during this season. Sometimes your constant presence kept emotions alive that were never as deep as they appeared. Your encouragement, attention, and availability may have carried the connection further than genuine commitment ever could. Once those outside supports disappear, only authentic feelings remain. What survives in the silence is often far more honest than what existed during constant communication. If their feelings are real, they will not simply miss the comfort you provided. They will miss you as an individual whose presence brought peace, encouragement, and joy into their life. They will begin recognizing the value of what they overlooked while it was freely available. Distance has a remarkable way of revealing appreciation that familiarity often conceals. On the other hand, if the connection depended mainly on convenience, that reality will become equally obvious. Feelings rooted only in habit rarely survive when effort is no longer one-sided. Although that realization may hurt, it is still a gift. Truth always provides greater freedom than an illusion that keeps your heart trapped in uncertainty. What God reveals may not always be easy to accept, but it is always meant to lead you toward peace. There is another work taking place that you should not overlook. While silence may be influencing them, it is also transforming you. Every day you stop exhausting yourself trying to control the outcome, you create room for God to restore the parts of your heart that became weary through striving. Your mind becomes clearer. Your discernment grows stronger. Your peace begins replacing the anxiety that once followed every unanswered message and every uncertain moment. Instead of pouring your strength into someone unwilling to meet you halfway, you begin investing that strength back into the life God has entrusted to you. Little by little, confidence returns. Joy begins to grow again. The emotional exhaustion that once defined your days slowly gives way to renewed hope. Healing often begins the moment we stop chasing what continually runs from us. The Bible teaches that strength is found in quiet trust, rather than endless striving. That truth becomes real in seasons like this. Your silence is not weakness. It is evidence that your faith is becoming greater than your fear. It demonstrates that you are willing to trust God with what you can no longer control. Finally, this quiet season reveals whether the relationship truly belongs in your future. If God has genuinely established this connection, what is meant to remain will not be destroyed by healthy boundaries or necessary distance. But if it was never part of His purpose for your life, the silence will expose that reality without endless conflict or confusion. Truth has a way of revealing itself naturally when we stop forcing outcomes. Whatever is built on honesty, love, and God's guidance will endure. Whatever depends only on one person's constant effort will eventually fade, making room for something far healthier and far more aligned with the future God has prepared for you. What is not meant to remain in your life will quietly fade away beneath the honest weight of your decision to step back. What cannot continue was never truly designed to stay, and a door that closes, beloved, is never God's punishment for something you did or something you failed to do. It is always God's loving protection over the path that is waiting ahead of you. Whatever leaves your life to make room for something far greater is not a loss. It is preparation for the blessing that has been moving toward you all along. When your energy changes and the pursuit finally comes to an end, The person on the other side often enters a season of emotional and spiritual uneasiness, even if they carefully preserve a calm and collected appearance for everyone around them. And the angels want you to understand what that unsettled feeling truly looks like, because recognizing it will keep you from misunderstanding what is quietly taking place in the space between the two of you. Their first response is rarely obvious or straightforward. Instead, it appears as a mixture of uncertainty, increasing curiosity, and a quiet anxiety that slowly grows beneath the surface of their everyday routine. Confusion is usually where everything begins. They had become familiar with a certain emotional and spiritual rhythm that existed between the two of you, a dependable pattern where your energy was always present and consistently moving in their direction. That rhythm created a feeling of stability inside them, even if they never fully recognized it or appreciated it while it was there. When that stability suddenly disappears, their spirit struggles to find a place of comfort again. They begin asking themselves questions that seem to repeat without ever producing satisfying answers. Why did everything change? What caused this sudden shift? Was it something they said? Was it something they did? Has something changed within you? Or has something changed within themselves? Those questions continue circling through their mind without ever settling into certainty, and that constant cycle creates a discomfort that becomes increasingly difficult to dismiss or ignore. What happens after the silence settles in and genuine reflection finally begins is not determined simply by the circumstances themselves. It is determined entirely by the inner condition of the individual who is now standing in the middle of those circumstances. Your absence creates an empty space, but what eventually grows inside that space depends completely on the emotional and spiritual maturity of the person experiencing it. Comment Jung if Carl Jung's wisdom is speaking to your soul today. A person who possesses genuine emotional and spiritual maturity does not immediately react to the discomfort created by your absence. Instead, they become still. They pause before acting. Rather than searching everywhere outside themselves for answers, they begin looking honestly within. They become curious not only about you, but also about themselves and the role they played throughout this connection. When they begin feeling the full weight of what has shifted, they do not rush to place blame or create explanations that simply protect their pride while excusing their own behavior. Instead, they quietly begin examining the part they personally played in how everything unfolded. How much did they truly contribute to the relationship? How honestly did they express what they genuinely felt and desired? How clearly did they pursue what mattered most while they still had the opportunity to do so? This honest examination brings with it a quiet sense of accountability that they may never have been willing to carry before. Rather than focusing only on what they stand to lose now, they slowly begin realizing what they failed to give while they still had the chance to give it. And from that sincere place of self-awareness, their response often becomes more intentional, more thoughtful, and far more genuine. If they truly value what existed between the two of you, they will begin moving toward it, not out of panic, not out of loneliness, and not simply to fill the silence that now exists. After you have prayed and fully surrendered the outcome into God's hands, the angels want to speak to something many people quietly carry deep within their hearts, but rarely know how to express with words. After you stop chasing, after you embrace the silence, after you truly place your trust in God, regardless of how everything turns out, many people expect that everything will suddenly fall into place. They imagine the answer will appear almost immediately. They believe the change will produce a quick, visible, and undeniable result. But, beloved, God works through seasons. Just as a seed carefully planted into the earth does not become a fully grown tree overnight, the clarity surrounding your covenant is also being developed with great care, with perfect intention, and according to divine timing that only heaven fully understands. Do not mistake a quiet season for an empty season. God is still working, even when your eyes cannot yet see the evidence of His work unfolding around you. He is working within them, gently stirring their heart, revealing hidden truths, and confronting the very things they have repeatedly avoided facing. He is also working within you, restoring what has been wounded, strengthening what has grown weak, and preparing your spirit so that when the blessing He has promised finally arrives, you are not too exhausted, too discouraged, or too distracted to receive it with peace, wisdom, and a whole heart. Even now, He is working within the spiritual atmosphere surrounding this entire situation, arranging details that remain invisible to human eyes, aligning hearts according to His perfect purpose, and preparing every step in ways that only His wisdom can fully understand. What appears quiet on the surface is often where the greatest spiritual movement is taking place. Trust the process, remain faithful in the waiting, and remember that God's silence never means His absence. Very often, His greatest work happens where human eyes cannot yet see, and His perfect plan continues unfolding long before the visible evidence finally appears. Removing everything that is no longer in harmony with your destiny, placing into your life what truly belongs there, and arranging every step according to His perfect and patient plan. Share this message with someone who is still chasing and truly needs to hear these words today. Habakkuk 2:3 reminds us that the vision is set for an appointed time. Though it may appear slow from our human perspective, we are instructed to wait for it because it will surely come and it will not delay. What God has prepared for your life has already been written. It has already been appointed. It will not arrive a single moment before the right time. But, beloved, hear this carefully and let it rest deeply within your spirit. It will not come late either. Trust heaven's timing even when it seems slower than you expected, even when the silence lasts much longer than you imagined it would, even when your emotions keep urging you to reach out again, to explain yourself one more time, or to chase once more just to escape the uncertainty you are feeling. During those moments, return to the promise found in Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. In every part of your life acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. That promise belongs to you right now in this present season and within this very silence. Beloved, the angels desire to speak directly to something that quietly lives beneath the surface and causes so many people to begin chasing again, even after they already know in their hearts they should stop. It is the fear of being alone, the fear that if this particular relationship does not work out, if this one specific person never chooses them, then there will never be anyone else. The fear that this was the very best they could ever hope to receive, the fear that waiting will only bring more waiting until loneliness becomes their permanent companion. If these thoughts have visited your heart during quiet moments, beloved, listen with all of your heart. Those thoughts do not come from heaven. They are whispers from the one whose purpose is to keep you living in fear, thinking small, and accepting far less than everything God has prepared and promised for your life. If this message is speaking to your heart, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing which part touched you the most, and subscribe for more wisdom inspired by Carl Jung and powerful spiritual insights. John 10:10 tells us clearly that the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. One of the greatest things the enemy tries to steal from God's children is their confidence in God's goodness and their faith that everything heaven has promised will truly come to pass in their lives. Zephaniah 3:17 speaks directly to every heart struggling with loneliness and fear. The Lord your God is with you. He is the mighty warrior who saves. He delights greatly in you. In His love He will quiet your fears, and He will rejoice over you with singing, gladness, and joyful celebration.